This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello and welcome everybody back again for another episode of Party Loaded. It is the podcast that is your weekly hit for everything that's great in the world of video games. The date is Thursday, the 10th of May. We're recording a little later in the week than we normally do. But I'm one of your hosts, Luke Italic. I'm partying up tonight with the usual two compadres. We have Christian, we have Jam. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Yo.
Yo, yo. Christian, we've wrestled you back from the warm, ever-loving embrace of daddy sickness. Daddy disease. I make it sound like you've got an STD, but that's not what I'm saying at all.
Or you make it sound like I've got a child or something.
No, I know.
I don't know.
What are you on about?
I've had miscellaneous illness.
No,
Leave it at that.
We're recording a couple of. Well, yeah, it's not like we were, rubbing you with ointment or any shit like that. We just recorded a couple of nights late because you had a sore tummy. I don't know. Whatever you want to say.
Oh goodness gracious!
No, it's good. Look, I think it's worked out in our favour anyway because we've got a few extra things to talk about, which is cool. So, how's your week been otherwise, guys? Anything interesting going on in the video game space or non-video game space, or I don't know what's going on?
Stuff and things. Yeah.
No, I think we've all probably been playing a lot of a rather big game that we'll talk about probably a bit. But yeah, not much else has been going on.
Cool. Well, Christian, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I really want to talk about that. Right now. Can we get Jan to talk about it first, though? Because I kind of want to use her as a bit of an indication as to how much we can mention.
Because we don't know where each other are. This is God of War we're talking about.
Yeah, this is God of War. I'm actually reasonably confident that I think that Jan's probably not as far ahead as the two of us, but I just want to put that to the test. So, Jan, how are you going with God of War?
I have not progressed at all since we last spoke.
So I was correct.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll ask you this, Luke. This is spoiler free. Have you unlocked all of the exploration tools?
When you say exploration tools, do you mean things that show up on screen, or do you mean things that are linked to getting trophies on PlayStation?
Oh, I mean like Metroidvania style obstacles that you...
Oh, all that? Yes. I have. I have in fact finished the game. So.
Okay, right.
So
so you are certainly further ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your stuff first, and then I'll tell you about my non-spoilery version of that tale. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just deep into the game. I'm at a guess. I think I'm probably maybe 2/3 through, but it is hard to tell because I don't know how far the scope is going to go in the game. One thing I do really love is that it has gone places I didn't think it would go. And I will avoid spoilers completely, but just, the main narrative thread has been like broader on certain topics and like touched on parts of the franchise's history, I'll say that at least, that I didn't expect it to. And it's really exciting. Yeah. So, I've just been stuck in. And I got to a point last night where I unlocked something that's very like fun and interesting. And that's made me want to like power on through. And I've stopped doing a lot of the side content. Because, there's so much exploration you can do in the game. There's that massive Lake of the Nine area. And unlike any of the previous God of War games, you can do a lot of open world exploration in there. And I found myself, thoroughly going to every spot I could, every boat dock. But then I unlock a new exploration tool. Like I'd be able to, get through a certain kind of door. And then I'd go, now I have to go back through all these areas and look for that type of door sort of thing. And
which is very much the Metroidvania stuff that you're referring to. It
is. But what I noticed is that you can kind of get away with skipping 2 or 3 like unlocks through the game before you go back and check the areas again to save yourself having to retread so much ground. Because I was kind of unlocking one thing and then just like not doing a thorough check of everything, but at least stopping into a few different places looking for how to utilize that. And it was a bit time consuming. So I think I've unlocked everything now. So yeah, I want to get through the main story, and I've heard that the post game you can play around and finish unlocking everything in the post game. So it sounds like you're there at the moment, Luke, in the post game.
Yeah. So all right, I finished on Monday night earlier this week. And the reason why I finished on Monday night earlier this week is because I binged the fuck out of this game over the weekend because I couldn't put it down. And when I got to the end of the game on Monday, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the comment that I made last episode about me thinking that God of War was going to be my Horizon Zero Dawn this year, I was actually wrong about that, as it turns out, because this game is actually a fuckload better than that. So,
nice.
Yeah, it is. This game has left such a lasting impression on me. I've literally been waking up at 4 a.m. and thinking about it. It has just done my head in. And it's done my head in from all of the mechanics in the game, to the acting, to the story, to the way that it paces itself. I'm still riding the high of having just finished it, but I'm actually reasonably confident in the months to come. I'm not going to change my view on it to the extent that it won't be one of the best games I've ever played. And just, it is just really hit me hard, this one. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, man, I just fucking hell. There is so much to love about this game, and I've been trying to gobble up as much post content as possible. Like, I watch a bit of YouTube content, in the games industry, of course, and Kind of Funny in particular. The team with Greg Miller and Nick Scarpino and Tim Geddes and a few extra sort of guys and girls that sort of flit in and out on their various programs. They actually did a God of War spoiler cast with Corey Barlog, the game director from Santa Monica, and it was like a full spoiler cast. So I'm not going to recommend this one to anyone who hasn't finished the game and done some of the additional sort of side content after you finish, because they really go into a lot of detail about it. So I waited until I'd done all of that before I listened to this thing, but it goes into so much detail about the love they put into this game, like crafting all the Easter eggs and all the little bits and pieces of narrative, and sort of doing justice to Kratos as a character and what he was in the previous titles as well. And I've just got so much more awesome respect after listening to all that stuff. Like, I picked up a lot as I played, but there was a lot that I missed as well. And it made me just realize, holy shit, how much of a piece of art this thing is. So yeah, man, it's that hub area that you were just referring to, one of the things that really shocked me, and I'm going to be super careful with spoilers here because I absolutely do not want to wreck this for anybody, because it's something you have to play. I think that one of the really clever things they did is that even though when you get to that point, you've got a bit of an indication of all of the different directions in terms of exploration the game could go in, and in most other cases, like playing a video game like this, I think you'd look at all of the branching paths that are offered to you and think, okay, throughout the course of the rest of the game, I'm going to hit on each of these as we go. So I've got a bit of an idea how long I think the game is going to be from this point, okay? That is not true. That is not accurate. It is a massive red herring. You do not know what the fuck is coming. That's all I'm going to say. They really put some clever tricks in there to throw you off what's actually going to be happening throughout the rest of the game. So expect the unexpected is all I'm going to say, and treat this game like a Marvel film is the only other thing I'm going to say. And I think you can work out what I mean. That's funny you say
that, because a friend of mine, 5 minutes into the game, just at that first kind of boss encounter you have, he sent me a message saying it feels like I'm playing a Marvel movie. It's like the first thing he said. So it's funny that you should mention that.
Yeah, well, I mean, even the gameplay evolves like massively as you go through too. Like as your abilities and your upgrades sort of open up, and you have different combat moves and styles that you can pursue. Like early on in the game, I was under the impression that it would be kind of a situation where you just pick your preferred method of combat and you kind of just stick with that throughout most of the game and just refine your skill at it. But I was so wrong. You really have to mix it up to survive in later parts. Like you kind of need to start using a lot of the tools at your disposal. I'm sure you can get by without doing that, but it certainly makes things easier if you diversify your style a bit and learn how to use different stuff. So
I've noticed like that there are so many sort of small upgrades you can get to your weapon, where it'll be like, oh, if you hold the button, then you'll do an extra attack, or if you chain a couple of combos together, then you get an extra finisher. And when you just read them, they don't seem so impactful. And the way I've sort of approached it is I've kind of just memorized like one or two at a time, where I'm just like, okay, I'll get in a habit of using this finisher or using this opener or something like that, but I won't be trying to do all of them. I'll just focus on a couple and then sort of slowly getting used to them and adding them into my repertoire. But yeah, because at the point where I'm at, it doesn't feel like you sort of need to be a master of the combat. You can just get comfortable with the basic like button mashing combos and then a few extra flourishes, and that's enough to get me by at the moment.
Yeah, I think
I'm really enjoying it.
The trick comes with certain enemy types that, like, your old tried and tested moves are just absolutely not as effective against, and it becomes really clear later on. So you really force yourself to sort of try different things. But the thing with those special sort of plug-in abilities as well is that quite a few of them, as you get throughout the game, might change positioning of yourself or the enemies as well, and that allows you to chain different kind of combinations of moves in a really dynamic way to create like cinematic responses to some of the things that they throw at you. So yeah, it's just the combat system is so impressive. I can't believe how much they went into it, because the game really sort of drip feeds you at the beginning. You just don't get a view at all as to how insanely in depth it's going to be until you really get stuck in. You certainly do feel like a superhero towards the end, but you come up against some shit. Let me tell you. And the best thing that they could have possibly done as far as the post-game stuff does is that it all still builds the narrative. Like, you finish the story and you have not finished the story. And that's
really good.
That's one of the best things I could say about it, to be honest.
That's the most disappointing thing about certain open world games, when you finish them and then sure you can go back and do post-game content, but the world just feels quiet and dead. And it just feels like you're not doing anything other than ticking boxes anymore. But from what you're saying, it sounds like there's still a bit of flavor and life left in the game afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of it just takes place when you're roaming around and just have conversations, with Atreus and any other characters that you encounter. And those conversations are just really, really good at building out the narrative just through that commentary of, the world around you and what's going on and how the characters interact with each other. And the opportunity to have more of that after you finish the sort of critical path story is great. I am actually wondering when that stuff's going to run out. I'm sure it will at some point, but it hasn't yet. So, yeah.
Cool.
But man, I could talk about this game all night and we can't, and it kind of makes me sad.
Has it been inspiring you to go back and play more, Jam?
I mean, I will.
Yeah. I'm not saying
half
that everybody will
half
say...
trying to not listen.
Not everybody's going to have the same opinion as me on this game. I'm certain of that. Like, there were going to be people who play God of War and are like, yeah, cool, I've played stuff like this before. But for me, it's just been like this, and I could not be happier. And I appreciate the fact that Jam's deliberately tuning out. She's probably good, doing the right thing to do that, frankly.
So that's actually probably a good thing.
Yeah, I hope that others have as much joy as I've had. And if they don't, that's cool, but, I'm enjoying the ride personally. So I actually loaded up Yakuza 6 last night and tried to play a little bit of that. And I got about 10 minutes in and then I realised I couldn't. And I just took the disc out, put God of War back in and kept playing. So, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. But Jam, you did get a bit of other gaming in this week, though, because we had some fun last night. You want to tell everybody about what we got up to?
Yes. We jumped on the stream and we tried out Destiny 2 Warmind, which was pretty cool. We pushed through some of the new storyline content with Ollie, and it was hilarious because we all had to remember how to play again.
Oh, we were rubbish.
We were all right. It was pretty funny. But yeah, it's good fun. It's interesting. I particularly love the javelins.
Oh,
when you get to them, they are great fun. The new areas we haven't seen a lot of. I don't know how much of the new content we've seen yet, but there's some interesting level design, but it just feels like more Destiny, really. But yeah, it's fun jumping back in. I miss the game. It's nice to revisit.
I jumped in and played a little bit sort of earlier this evening before we got together to record the show, and there is one thing that I've been reading a little bit about, which I've experienced now myself as well, which disappoints me greatly, and that is that a lot of the new areas on Mars with Warmind are reused for the new content. So the strikes in particular take place in the exact same areas that the story missions do.
I've read that too.
Yeah, with a lot of the same enemies as well. Apparently, the only completely new strike is the PlayStation 4 exclusive one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
That's what I read, yeah.
Shit.
That's frustrating.
That's the only one with actual new area.
Yeah. Well, they kind
lame.
of did the same thing in a way when Curse of Osiris launched as well. But the way that one was built is because a lot of the story sort of takes place within a AI that kind of generates the world. They're able to chop and change the order of it because you're basically running around inside a giant simulation, and it makes sense from a story point of view for that to be the case. But with this one, it's literally treading the same area's ground again. So, yeah, that's kind of disappointing. I don't know. I mean, the DLC doesn't seem to be getting received like massively well by a bunch of people. I mean, it's coming across okay, and I haven't experienced a lot of it yet. There's still heaps more to dig into, but I think at the end of the day, it's not going to shake the game up immensely. But Destiny this week is better than Destiny was last week, essentially. So, yeah, I don't know. We haven't played the new raid layer yet though, so we'll see what that's all about because the raid stuff's usually the best content. So yeah, hopefully get a chance to check that out and drag 4 of our other friends back in again. I'm sure there's enough of those still kicking around playing Destiny to do that. So yeah,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jem, I also want to know about the other thing that you played because this is one of my favourite games from recent years, and I want to see how this holds up.
We Memo and I, along with Jason, jumped into Stardew Valley multiplayer beta, and it's kind of cute. It's freaking adorable. It's amazing running around in that world with friends, and it makes managing a farm so much easier. Oh my god, it's really cute. All of the storyline-driven sections that are like cutscenes, you kind of get dragged along to, whether you're about to pass out or not, which is unfortunate. Experienced a couple of little glitches where when we've gone to sleep, the game crapped itself and we had to restart the game. But that only happened twice. And so far, I absolutely love it. It's so cute running around and past each other in the village and being like, oh, hey, oh, you're going to go get this? Oh, no, I'm going to go there. I'll shop for that. And you have to share resources and money. So everything's all because it's Memo's farm. Memo, can we spend money on a backpack? Oh, okay. Okay, no, never mind.
Oh, that's how it works. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it's her farm. The host maintains the save file, and it's their farm, but you share resources. So we've got some, community chests going with where we dump all of our like ordinary resources. So if someone needs a pile of wood for anything, it's there.
Okay.
But we've each got our own little hut. Like Memo has the big house on the farm, and we've got Jason and I each have a little hut nearby, and we can run around and romance people. But we hadn't done very much romancing before the first flower dance, so Memo and I ended up. She asked me to the dance, and I said yes, and we danced, and it was adorable. It was so cute. Doing that little like bopping, just on the spot.
That's funny.
So it's still in beta, but I mean, perfect addition to the game. This game was made for multiplayer. It's just so much fun running around with a friend. Even in the mines too, you can just like push down through and have some help, have someone else wailing on those stupid monsters.
I was going to say the mines, like with multiple players, seems like that in particular would be a lot easier because that's a challenging part of the game to begin with. Does it actually scale with the number of monsters that spawn and things like that, or is it the same as before?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
We're just pushing down together. It's easier. Every 5th level you sort of save the spots so the elevator can go straight down. We push through faster when there's more of us in there, so it's really good. We've still got a lot to do with unlocking different bits around the town through the community centre. We've made a loose start on that, but yeah, we found that we're not farming as much. We're focusing on other things. There's a lot of fishing going on. There's a lot of mining and gathering. But yeah,
a lot of bits and pieces.
Very cute. Works really well.
Yeah, Stardew Valley's cool. I would like to go and finish playing that game because I haven't finished off the community centre quests yet. But I don't know. I've always kind of convinced myself that that's going to be a travel game. Like I'll chuck it on a laptop when I have to take a laptop around somewhere, and then I always end up just playing Hearthstone. So it never seems to work out. Yeah. Well, anything else? Anybody been playing any other games before we move on?
I've just been smashing out more of the usual. PUBG's got some new stuff. There was some new bits and pieces added last week. The new sniper rifle is a lot of fun.
Oh.
I really like it. And pistols do more damage. I got some pistol kills finally.
Nice.
Which is cool. In Armello, I managed to squeeze out 2 wins in about an hour 20 the other day against our friends. That was hilarious. They were not impressed. One of them was half an hour. It took me half an hour to gather 4 spirit stones, smash through the peril, and strategist to the king.
Oh, nice. This
It
isn't
was
doing one of the like Friday
awesome.
Fury sort of scenarios, is it? Like the fast game or no? Yeah.
No, it was just an ordinary game.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was cool. Sky Factory 3, I have an orchard. I'm working on getting all of my produce so that I can build my restaurant still.
I saw that one of the crew in Sky Factory was setting up a machine to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. What the fuck is that about?
That's Al's intention. There's every chance he will just burn everything down again
Okay.
when he tries. It's got to the point, like they were well behaved for a very long time, but it's got to the point now where if you go down some stairs from our main platform, they've set up all of this automated shit, like for it's just insane.
Right.
They flipped a switch and went, okay, we're not waiting anymore.
So
it's just
like
going great guns.
Tony Stark's workshop kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pipes everywhere, and it was such a horrible mess, but now they've tidied it up and it's so efficient. So very impressive. Good fun. I'm still playing on my farm.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then the only other thing I've been playing is Hearthstone as usual. But I've been having a bit of trouble on ladder this season. I'm struggling to climb. It's getting a bit frustrating, getting a bit tilted. But I'll keep at it. Make sure I get to at least rank 1 by the end of the season is my goal.
Yep. Well, word is there might be some balance updates, some tweaks coming in the next couple of weeks after some of the major tournaments have taken place. So
as soon as I'm done with the playoffs, then balance some stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, moving on to the news for tonight. We've got heaps to get through because, like you said, Luke, we did leave it a few days later to record. So there's been a bit of a build-up.
Good stuff, though. I'm keen to get into this.
Oh, yeah, all good stuff, yeah. Our first item for tonight is that the aforementioned God of War has been a massive success for Sony. It's actually become their best-selling exclusive opening sales record. So I think they said 3.1 million units over the opening weekend, which is amazing. Their previous best was Uncharted 4, and that was like 2.5 or 2.7, something like that.
Yeah.
2.7. So smashed really that previous record, and Uncharted 4 was a huge game. So yeah, well done, God of War.
Absolutely. Now, you think about this too, because there will be a sequel. There absolutely will be a sequel to this in terms of this new story arc that they're building. How insane is the hype for the next one going to be, and what will the sales figures for that be like?
That's a lot of pressure on Studio Santa Monica, though, isn't it? Considering how long they took to bake this cake.
That's probably. Yeah, look, you're not wrong, but it's going to be exactly how it plays out. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So, I think, I was just going to say, in terms of things that are hyped at the moment, Red Dead's got its work cut out for it this year.
That's for sure. Yeah, I was just going to say that one thing that impresses me in particular about God of War becoming the bestseller is that I think the franchise at one point had hit a bit of fatigue in people's minds. Because the last console God of War that came out was Ascension, and that was like quite a poor selling game comparatively, and people were kind of a bit tired on God of War. But then I guess taking so many years off and then coming back with such a stellar hit with such amazing reviews, it's just like completely reinvigorated the franchise. I think because if they'd done this game wrong, it would have just been more of the same. People would have just not cared, but they've just completely re-energized the franchise completely.
It's that perfect storm as well. Like, I think that the fact that there hasn't been any other massive releases this month of the year, this year, like we had probably the big thing around March last year was Mass Effect Andromeda, which, as it turned out, didn't actually perform greatly, but that was extremely anticipated and was the big release for that kind of period. It hasn't really had a huge amount of competition this year. And I mean, the fact that PlayStation 4 is in the position that it is at the moment and just absolutely firing on every gun that it's got, it really is the perfect time for it to succeed like it has. So yeah, but I mean, not to say that the hard work is not well deserved, because they certainly put their heart and soul into this game. That much is evident. So
and then the other small piece of God of War news was that they just released the photo mode for the game. They just unlocked that. They had announced it previously. It's quite a popular thing these days. Horizon and Uncharted, a few other games have had their photo modes. Mm-hmm. Have you checked that out? Have you played around with it yet, Luke?
I haven't tried the photo mode. I am actually surprised that it came out as early as it did now. Like, the game's been out for 2.5, 3 weeks? I think it's probably
Yeah,
heading
right.
towards 3 weeks. I actually thought they were going to hold off and do it in another couple of weeks. And the reason for that is because as soon as photos of this game start getting shared around, there are some big spoiler things that I think will become immediately obvious. So,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, I think you know about a couple of them that I might be referring to.
Couple, at least. Yeah.
I actually applaud them for not making this a feature on release because I think that would have been a problem. So,
I had not anticipated that at all, but that's so true.
yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's good that it's got it though, because it is a very, very pretty game, and certainly, there'll be some good photos out of it. Apparently, you can change Kratos's facial expressions as well.
Yeah. You can make him smile, which just looks wrong.
Yeah. I think there was like a phone app thing like a couple of months ago. It might have been a Snapchat thing. I'm not actually sure, where you could take faces of people and make them look young or old or smiling, depending on what the original photo was. And there was some really like unnerving photos of Kratos going around before of like him in a rictus kind of Joker-like grin. But
Oh, God.
yeah, this is kind of I don't know if it's better or worse, to be honest. It's just different. Yeah.
And then another piece of big news this week is Nintendo have finally pulled the veil off their online service. So this is for the Nintendo Switch. Back when they announced the console, they simultaneously said that they were going to be having a subscription-based like online service similar to PlayStation Plus or Games for Gold, whatever the Microsoft one is. But they were like shy about the details for a long time, and they just gave people free online play to start with, so you didn't have to pay a subscription to actually play online games like ARMS and Splatoon and Mario Kart. But starting soon, you're going to actually have to pay for that privilege again, like they said that you would have to. And the few other details that you get from the subscription, it's nothing too mind-blowing really. So you get the online play, you get save cloud backups, which I think isn't, it's kind of that, in my opinion, should maybe just be part of the console anyway. You get access to the Switch's online app, which is a smartphone app that I don't anticipate many people will use. So they have used it so far only for Splatoon 2, and it was a kind of a PR disaster when they did launch it because nobody just wanted to use it and everyone just uses Discord instead. And then the only sort of one that I find interesting is the NES game library. So they're having to start with 20 NES games that they've sort of handpicked that will have added online functionality, and you just get sort of access to those 20 games. And they said that in the future months they will add more games into it, but no no virtual console or anything like that so far. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on it.
I have some views on this, and they're kind of on both camps. Like, it's good and bad. I think the virtual console thing, what a lot of people are getting confused by with this is that virtual console was basically like a backwards compatible download digital copies of old games and play it on your Wii or your Wii U device. And you had that library, which was yours. It's very similar to what's happening with digital game purchases these days on modern consoles. Now, I think that what they're actually doing with the Nintendo Switch Online is really clever and makes a lot of sense. And I don't think we're losing a lot by not having Virtual Console, except for the people who've already paid the price for those games and think that they should have the right to port them over to a new console. I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that... I mean, for example, if a PlayStation 5 was to come out in a few months' time and we invested in that, would we immediately assume that all of the digital PS4 games that we purchased should be playable on the PlayStation 5? I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be great if they were, but I wouldn't necessarily expect that. So
no, but Virtual Console wasn't just backwards compatibility. Like, one of the good things about Virtual Console was that it went beyond just previous Nintendo generations. You could get Mega Drive games, Master System games. You could even get Turbo Graphics games.
True. And
games from it was the only way to get certain N64 games as well. Like there was a huge, vast library pulled from all different consoles that you had access to. That there's literally no other way of playing unless you have those consoles from decades ago. So I didn't think of it as so much backwards compatibility as just a vast library of interesting games.
Of all games, yeah. I mean, the pros, though, with what they are offering is that, and the service is only launching with 20 games. They're going to add new titles regularly, they're saying. That it looks like the games are going to be like a fixed sort of library. It's not like you're going to have games of the month that rotate through and then after that you can't play them, which is what we initially thought it was going to be, which is good. But they're also sort of releasing these games in a format that is suitable for Switch. So it actually works with the Switch controllers. You know, some of them may actually have rumble features added. Multiplayer is being added for some games that actually haven't had that before. So you'll be able to play things like Dr. Mario multiplayer, tennis multiplayer online, you know, things like soccer. I think even the Mario games you'll be able to play multiplayer online, which is really friggin' cool.
But these are NES games we're talking about.
They are, but they're classics, and you've never been able to play them like two-player online before. You've always had to be local multiplayer. So
I know it's neat, but as like a subscription service, I think that it's not really a lot of value there. Like you could just buy those games from the eShop with the online functionality. I don't know why it has to be a subscription service.
I think there's some truth to that. It really does depend on what they continue adding to the service over time. But I will say their pricing plans, I think, are actually quite reasonable. So they're only charging $19.99 US for 12 months. So it works out to like
it's reasonable.
$1 or $2 a month, which is I think is pretty reasonable for what they're offering at the moment. So
I still hold a grudge against Sony though for packing online play into PS Plus as well. Like I don't think that you should have to pay a subscription to play online. I just philosophically don't like that. But Nintendo aren't the only people doing it, so it's not like they're villains in that regard. No,
exactly. They're kind of offering some things that are better than the other online services available. Some things are worse. Like, they're going to be the only console that you have to have an online subscription service to be able to save your games to the cloud, which is a bit shit.
Yeah. but like you say, they are the cheapest though. So
yeah, exactly. They just have to continue, giving us value for what it's going to be. So I don't know. I think I'm probably paying about the equivalent at the moment for maintaining an annual subscription for my Pokemon bank for my DS Pokemon games.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So maybe they'll roll that into it. I don't know. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. But I don't know. Yeah, I think there's some pros and cons. At least they haven't. It's not as bad as what it seemed. When we first heard it about a year or so ago.
Wake me up when they add N64 games into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one. Other interesting things about vast quantities of games. There was a bit of a leak over the last couple of days, which was funnily enough from Walmart in Canada. Now, basically what happened is Walmart listed a whole bunch of upcoming titles that we're going to be, taking pre-orders for or on sale at some point in the future. Now, some of them were pretty obvious ones that we knew were coming that had already been spoken about, like things like the new Tomb Raider and stuff like that. But there was a bunch of titles that actually hadn't been announced yet, and it looked like a bit of a sneaky early E3 leak. So I'm just going to try and bring up the list here. Where is it? We've got a bunch of new games. So some things that were surprising are Splinter Cell, a new Splinter Cell game. Tom Clancy's The Division 2 we knew about. Beyond Good and Evil 2 we knew was coming at some point. Last of Us 2. Final Fantasy VII Remake was listed, which appears legitimate, but the fact that it's actually being listed maybe indicates that it's coming a little earlier than what we thought. Now here's the surprising ones. Borderlands 3 was listed. Now, we knew that was in development, but in terms of when it's released, we didn't actually know. So it looks like we might, if this is legit, be seeing some stuff on that at E3 this year. Destiny Comet, which we can kind of assume is like the full Destiny big expansion along the lines of the Taken King. Now, Comet might be a code name, or it might be something like what it's actually being called. So that's an interesting one. We also had Rage 2 on PS4. What the fuck?
Game nobody expected.
No, nobody thought that was happening. We didn't know what exactly Bethesda had up their sleeve, but if this is a hoax and it's not actually Rage 2, then someone's taken a pretty interesting punt, assuming that one's in the pipeline. But Bethesda, because for some stuff, they can be absolute champions, and they actually responded to it on Twitter in the funniest way possible. So the old Rage Twitter account actually fired up and basically responded and said, Walmart, check your facts. Here, if we were actually announcing Rage, this is the way we would do it. And they'd corrected some of the spelling and changed the logo and all this other shit. And then the actual Bethesda Twitter account responded to that one and just said, dude. So I'm like, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way of not kind of confirming or denying, but having a bit of fun with it. And I just thought it was hilarious. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think there's some weight to this? Like, is this actually an early look at what's going to be announced at E3, or is this complete BS? What do you guys think, if you had to guess?
If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably legitimate. There's one interesting thing there, which is that they listed Forza Horizon 5, whereas Forza Horizon 3 is the most recent entry, but that's a believable typo by Walmart, I think.
Yeah.
And also the source, like Warrior64, the Twitter account, he's well known for posting legitimate leaks and legitimate like information from the industry. So I kind of trust his authority a little bit. Yeah. So yeah,
certainly some believable ones. There's a couple that made me raise an eyebrow. They said Just Cause 4, and I was like, it's probably a little early for another Just Cause game. And they had Gears of War 5 listed as well. I'm like, well, maybe it's not too early for another Gears game. So yeah, I don't know. Well, that's super interesting. I think we're hitting that peak news season at the moment where, last year when E3 was coming up, we did see a bunch of early leaks. Like some of them I think were probably orchestrated by the companies involved to try and get ahead of the news dump that happens over that week and maybe, get their time to shine ahead of that big info dump. But I think some of them were actually, quite serious leaks that people just hadn't been, awake at the wheel kind of thing. And some fuck-ups occurred. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Makes for an awesome time for us to speculate and have some fun with it, basically. Yeah. But speaking of E3, Square Enix have announced that they are returning to E3 with a conference event scheduled. So they haven't actually had one for a couple of years now. I think, what are we in now, 2018? I think 2015 or 16 was the last one that they held. But they've got some stuff that could be coming this year. They've got Kingdom Hearts 3, we know, is on the way. I mean, we've been seeing some stuff for the Life is Strange plans, and if they announce Life is Strange 2 at that event, I would not be surprised, because that game's had quite a bit of focus in recent years. So the Tomb Raider stuff would fit with Square, so that's another big title, another big property we know they've got coming. But I don't know, what else?
And then from that leak list, Final Fantasy VII Remake, potentially.
Yeah.
And Dragon Quest Builders 2 is a Square joint as well. So
absolutely. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think sounds
like they got a lot of fuel.
Much in the way that Bethesda sort of comes out strong with maybe four titles or 4 or 5 titles. Maybe that'll be a similar kind of thing for them. So yeah, but that's cool. I'm excited about that. That's awesome. So Steam, you guys are familiar with Steam, right?
I am.
Had a bit of time with Steam. Have either of you ever used the Steam Link stuff?
I have not.
You have not.
What is Steam Link?
Okay, so Steam Link is a little box you can buy, which is kind of similar to, I guess I could compare it to Apple TV. You know how you've got those little sort of set-top boxes?
Or Chromecast.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So Steam Link essentially allows you to connect up to like another display device in your home, like a TV in your living room or something that's away from your computer, and basically play all of your Steam games through accessing that on your, on whatever device that is. Now, there's some really interesting news that's just come out today about Steam Link apparently is actually coming to mobile platforms. And what that means, they claim, is that you will be able to play your full library of Steam games from your mobile device as long as you're on a network shared by your Steam Link. So it's shared by your PC, I think it is. So theoretically, as long as you're on a wireless network that connects to that, because the Steam controller that they have, I'm pretty certain is Bluetooth compatible. And, mobiles these days typically are Bluetooth as well. You'll be able to use like the Steam controller with your mobile device and play straight off the screen of your mobile, which is super interesting. Like the fact that they're saying that your entire library will be able to be played like that rather than just games that we know have been built for mobile recently, like Fortnite and PUBG. That opens up a world of possibilities. Like, Jan, that Stardew Valley multiplayer, you could be playing that on your phone, potentially. So
that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's a bit gnarly.
I think the real test of it will be the performance as far as like latency and stability goes, because there's been a few like experiments with wireless like remote play, like PS Vita had remote play, things like the Nvidia Shield had remote play, and a lot of the time the sort of deal breaker has come in just it being unstable. Like if it works 95% of the time and then you're getting frame drops or disconnects 5% of the time, that's a deal breaker. So it really will, I think, depend on how solid the device or the app is at actually maintaining the stream of the game. But if it works like you hope it works. It's pretty crazy.
Well, there's definitely going to be games that it's better for than others. And, when we're talking about mobile devices, realistically, there's a lot of games that people are not going to want to play on their phones. Like, if they've got a tablet, they'll probably try it with that. Sitting on the couch. If they don't have a laptop, maybe they can use their tablet and, stream directly to that. But there is some stuff that would work perfectly, like being able to play... I was going to say Darkest Dungeon, but that's probably a bad example because I think there is a mobile version of that out.
And also that game's difficult with a controller as well.
True. So you probably just use the touch... actually, would they use touch control?
Yeah, I don't think touch will work. No, because the first thing that came to mind for me was Into the Breach, but that's a mouse game and it doesn't work with a controller, so you won't be able to play it.
That's a really good point. Into the Breach would be a great example, though, if you can play that with the controller, comfortably. I don't know. It's just going to be a trial and error thing. I think there's going to be some games that are really well suited to it. I mean, maybe game developers will actually start to consider this in the future and realize that if their stuff can be played on a mobile screen, then maybe they'll have some consideration to the interface for that. Yeah. It's super weird. More mobile gaming through Steam. I just did not expect that. But yeah. Speaking of things not expected, it was not expected last year when we saw the first cinematic trailer for the game, but there's actually been some early gameplay revealed 1 year later for Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, I don't know shit about this game because I never played the original Beyond Good and Evil, and I think the two of you are in the same boat as well. But
that's right.
That cinematic last year was pretty godsmacking good, and I think that the general consensus after that came out at E3 was that, yep, that's great. We're probably not going to see this game for 5 years, but the fact that early gameplay has been revealed 1 year later, just before E3 2018, that's super interesting and promising because it actually looks kind of cool. So. I don't know. This could be a big game that blows up considerably if the resources are being thrown behind it like it appears to be. So it could be an early look at some of the stuff that's going to be showing at E3 this year. I did not expect it to be on the floor again, but maybe I was wrong. So we'll see. But along the lines of other new gameplay footage, there was a trailer for the Don't Nod game. Jamie, did you get to see that?
Yes, Vampire. It's very spooky looking. Focus Interactive released it, and it's pretty gory. It's very vampire-y.
Nice.
It looks fun. It looks dark. I'm very intrigued. Not half because my D&D character is now a vampire.
No, that's right.
Not at all.
No,
it's got
not
nothing
at all.
to do with it.
Yeah. I got the impression from what they talked about with this game that it's going to be a very decision-driven game where you can actually sort of, do a bit of... light side or dark side kind of choices that affect the game world around you and how your character progresses from what they've spoiled. So,
So they are sticking with the adventure story style game like Life is Strange.
I don't know. It seems like there's a lot more action in this one. Actually, I think you've got a lot more agency.
Okay, yeah, because I remember their game before was Remember Me, which was a very middling average action game. So I was wondering if they were going to try and restore their reputation on that style of game or stick to the narrative one, but
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that Don't Nod have proven their chops now at being reasonably versatile and certainly able to carry a very good narrative with excellent acting. So, and that's exactly the kind of thing you want when it comes to vampire lore stuff. Because I think people think vampires, they think action movies, they think Blade and what was that other one with. God damn it. Kate Beckinsale, the Underworld series?
Underworld.
Yeah. I mean, that still carries a bit of history with it, but I think that most, interesting vampire stuff is always the heavy sort of political story, family-driven stuff that you see. And particularly when it comes to, Vampire the Masquerade, Bloodlines that Ollie is so fond of, that's, the huge foundation of that kind of game as well. It's all the narrative world-building stuff, so that's what I would be kind of hoping for with that one, but yeah. Don't know. But anyway, that's a ton of news. Should we get into a main topic for tonight, team? What do you think?
Let's do it.
So, Jam Mimo had an interesting idea during the week. Do you want to just give us a top-down idea, layout of what you think she was getting at, and then we can explore this one together?
What I think? Okay, sure. She suggested that we tackle a discussion about video game sidekicks, their purpose, what's good versus what's bad, and the different ways they're used in the storytelling and in the mechanics of the games. So that's tonight.
It's a pretty relevant one given that we've just been talking a whole bunch about God of War and the relationship with Kratos and Atreus. So yeah, I don't know. Types of sidekicks in games, how would we split these up? What kind of different types do you guys think of?
I kind of came up with a rushed sort of typology of sidekicks in games, and I broke them down into escort characters, like combat assistants, and like information / narrative like feeders.
Mm-hmm.
So escort characters being ones who you're sort of burdened with sometimes, and you need to protect them and make sure that they don't get into trouble and get them from one point to another. And then the combat partners being people who actively help you in combat, and you don't they look after themselves, and they're just like in a lot of games maybe a human can take over, and it can be like a co-op experience. Like Resident Evil 5, for example, with Sheva.
Mm-hmm.
And then the information characters, usually sometimes not physically present, might be like over the radio, giving you updates on your mission, something like that, or like Wheatley in Portal 2, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Otacon in the Metal Gear Solid.
Otacon, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sort of pop in when there's important information. Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I think there's definitely a few examples that fit multiple of those at once. Yeah. The one thing that kind of stood out to me as I started to list games that I thought had good examples of sidekicks is that it's very easy to blur the line between sidekicks and kind of party games, like where you've got a team.
Yeah.
And I think there's a major difference between the two of them, because a lot of those party games, there's an element of kind of group management where it comes to managing how those additional party members actually function in support with you. And it's because there's a number of them, it's not really the same kind of relationship dynamic. I think the Mass Effect series is a good example of that, because you do spend a fair bit of time sort of kitting out your other party members. And while there's a bit of a sidekick kind of element to it, I think it's more of a resource management and a team dynamic that you kind of have to work within when it comes to the combat and sort of skill building stuff within the game. Another good example would be Dragon Age Inquisition. So, and that one in particular is different because you can actually take control of your party members as well. Like, you can actually flip that perspective as you are fighting. Like, there's one character that is essentially meant to be you, but then you can sort of flip to one of the others at any time if you need to take a stronger control and have more agency about what that character's doing. So, even though the story continues to rotate around your primary character. So,
I kind of drew a line there between party members and sidekicks. Like, I was considering sidekicks are characters that it's like a 2-person or 2-creature or whatever relationship. Yeah, like a Batman and Robin style thing, not a whole team of people. Because if Kratos had sort of 10 children that you were cycling between and giving different items, then the relationship with Atreus would probably be a bit different.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think those are pretty good examples. So,
functionally, I think so. That's the character function. But when I was thinking about it myself, a distinction that was loud and clear in my mind is whether the character was a puppet or whether they truly had agency.
Yeah.
And that hinges on whether I appreciate them as a sidekick or not. Basically, if their personality or if their character changes for the sake of a story crutch, it feels cheap. No matter what function they're fulfilling, they feel like just a puppet next to me there to do stuff. Whereas if they appear to have choice and agency and they influence the story and the story changes because of their involvement and they're well written, then they truly feel like a sidekick and not just a prop.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Regardless of their function. And that's a big kicker for me in how I rate sidekicks, basically, in my games.
Yeah.
I think these like fully fleshed sidekicks, like you're talking about their jam, where they have their own agency and they feel real, that's only sort of been coming about in the last maybe 5-10 years at the most. Like, I remember such a big deal being made when BioShock Infinite came out with like Elizabeth and her character, and her AI was so dynamic and like realistic. And I feel like from kind of then on, I mean, there was some characters before her too, but that kind of, I think, was a bit of a start of a trend. With now we've had like Ellie in Last of Us and like Atreus in God of War, and a few characters like that have really come alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're going back to super basic examples of what sidekicks used to be, and decades ago you'd be looking at things like the Mega Man games where you had like Rush, the robot dog that shows up to help you at various different points, but it's always on rails. Like, he'll always show up at the same point because it's a mechanic of how that level works at that moment to allow you to platform to the next area. Like,
yeah, it's very mechanically driven.
yeah, so he's almost
rather
like
than
not a
narratively.
sidekick that you have any control over. It's kind of just part of the scenery. It's nothing more than that, even though, narratively he is kind of Mega Man's sidekick to a certain extent. So,
Yeah. And in the early days, a lot of the sidekicks were like player 2 characters, like in Double Dragon, Billy and Jimmy, but it's really just there so that you can play 2-player,
Yep, Luigi.
Luigi, yeah, exactly. Literally just a recolored Mario to start with.
Yeah.
So-
Well, he's one of the most famous sidekicks of all, but he's probably one of the worst ones mechanically because he is literally just a player too. He didn't really get his own time to shine until much, much later, which was when, what was it, Mario was missing? Is that the name of the game where he actually was the primary character?
Yes. Awful, PC, that was terrible.
Yeah. Oh, it was a bad game. I mean, the Luigi's Mansion stuff that came later, much, much better, but yeah, as a sidekick, he was god-awful for the most part.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys have any favorites? Like, can you think of any sidekicks that... Actually, let's talk favorite mechanics first. Like, what do you like the most in how sidekicks work? Like, if you had to pick mechanics that you think are best examples of how they should be used, what would you say?
I'd go for good, I guess, exploratory mechanics in the sidekick, ways to discover new places in the environment or help you navigate or maneuver around the environment, like a place you wouldn't maybe typically get to if your character was on their own. Together, you're able to, like we did in, what was the game we played recently, Luke? On the Friend Pass. Name
A Way Out.
escapes.
Yep.
Yeah, A Way Out. Like, we were controlling those two characters, but there are instances of your sidekick being able to, give you the leg up to get up to a ledge and that sort of thing. Oh, God of War. God of War is the perfect example.
Yeah, I think...
Atreus can, kick down a chain and you can hurl him up to a ledge to get to new places, that sort of thing.
And he'll just point out stuff in the environment too, like you're saying. He'll just be like, what's that over there? Or like, take a look at this. And yeah, that's really super helpful.
And the fact that he doesn't
a
actually
chest.
highlight it with a glowing aura, you actually have to physically look at what he's pointing at.
Yeah.
Which is much more natural.
It's clever, it's crafty, and it means you're less likely to miss stuff, but it also feels like those two characters are experiencing the environment together. Like, it sort of draws you into it.
Absolutely. I think my favourite in terms of mechanics, you kind of touched on it already, but it's the ones that actually serve to propel the narrative forward by giving you that additional source of dialogue. I think that's the best because a lot of these games we're talking about are single-player sort of games where you're either relying on your character having a lot of other sort of personalities in the game world around them to interact with and kind of sort of build them out as you play as them, or they need to have something available at all times for them to interact with. Now, if they have like a comm unit or something where they're sort of, speaking to somebody who's not there, that's one technological solution to that. But the ones where there's actually a character traveling with them and constantly sort of going back and forth with, a bit of speech between the two of them, and ones that they don't necessarily get along with, I think are really, really interesting. So, we're going to speak about God of War with a lot of this stuff tonight because it's almost the perfect example of what we're talking about in many different ways. And Atreus, without going into it, Atreus is probably not the only example I would point at there. But Last of Us Ellie, another one that really springs to my mind from recent times is the Uncharted games. So Uncharted 4 did it with Sam Fisher and... sorry, not Sam Fisher. It is Sam Fisher.
That's Splinter Cell.
No, Sam Fisher. Yeah,
isn't that the main
I'm thinking of Elena Fisher, sorry. So, yeah, Elena Fisher and Sam Drake. Yeah. So they kind of, at different times during Uncharted 4, you have one or the other, or both of them occasionally. But in Uncharted Lost Legacy, the dialogue back and forth between Chloe and Nadine was another really good example of this too. So one of the best parts about that game was the fact that those two characters did not get on to begin with, and a lot of the tale is about how they learned to work together, because Nadine was a heel. Like, she was a villain in Uncharted 4, and so the fact that she's starting out as one of the the good guy characters, for lack of a better description, in Lost Legacy, means that she's got some story to get across about why she's actually in that position, and you're not fighting against her. So in order to justify that and make her presence make sense, they spend a lot of time with that back and forth dialogue, making it not that easy. Like, it's actually a fractious relationship at times, but it makes sense because you have all of that time for them to, have that conversation as you're playing, like as you're roaming the game world. You don't have to wait for cutscenes. You don't have to wait for key moments in the story for that to actually happen. It just happens, like as you're roaming around. That's my favorite kind of sidekick. The ones that make it seem natural and effortless and not scripted, I think, are the ones that sort of fit best. Yeah,
definitely agree. And another thing that I'll add is your sidekick character should never feel like a burden, because that can be very frustrating in some games. Like, I really like in Resident Evil 4, you're with character Ashley for a lot of the game, and if at any time you want, you can like ask her to go and hide somewhere while you go and kill some zombies, so that like she doesn't just get taken down and you don't get a game over. So I like it when, if you do have to protect a character or escort a character, if you can like choose to tuck them away somewhere, or it's frustrating in games sometimes where you have to babysit your sidekick too much.
Yeah.
Like I remember even going back to GoldenEye on N64, some of the missions with Natalia, and she would just get blown up and it was very, very frustrating. So don't do that.
It's more of a game mechanic as opposed to proper sidekick.
Yeah.
So a couple of things I want to throw at you guys and to sort of think whether you actually would consider these sidekicks or not. Would you consider Yoshi to be a sidekick in Super Mario World?
No.
No.
I wouldn't.
He's a mount.
He's a mount.
Yeah, he is a living vehicle.
Disposable vehicle in some cases. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an advocate for Yoshi rights, quite frankly, because I think Mario, he takes away Yoshi's agency.
Okay.
And I think that's
True.
they appreciate that.
They do have a little bit of dialogue early on, don't they? I'm sure they do.
Well, if you go back to Yoshi's Island, where he's looking after baby Mario, so it's a bit of a role reversal.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. All right, well, along a similar line, would you consider Cappy in Mario Odyssey to be a sidekick?
No.
Oh,
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I have not played it.
Interesting.
Because Cappy to me is just he's a mechanic. Like, sure, he's a separate entity, but he's like
He's a tool?
He's a tool, yeah. Like, I'd hardly consider Banjo and Kazooie. Like, Kazooie, is Kazooie your sidekick, or is Banjo your sidekick? Like, is Cappy really in charge the whole time? I don't know.
It's like a brain leech.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, that whole game is about taking over things with your Cap, so maybe Cappy's the one in charge the whole time.
All right, well, here's the counterpoint that I'm going to throw at you. I actually do think that Cappy errs on the side of sidekick. Now, I do agree that it's a very fine line here, but the reason why I think that Cappy probably does fit the bill is because while he is a tool in the way that he functions in the game, that you can use him to sort of take over other creatures and that kind of thing, my counterpoint to that is so is Atreus in God of War, because you can actually use him as an additional attack in combat, and he kind of, while he does have some AI and does some of that independently, you also have direct control over how he attacks. But similarly, Cappy also propels the narrative forward because he actually explains a lot of the places that you find yourself in Mario Odyssey, and actually helps you sort of obtain some of your goals early on, especially in the quests. So without Cappy being involved in the game, the story is not what it is. So
that's an interesting argument, Luke.
Yeah, he actually does have a lot of ongoing dialogue with Mario. So
I will maintain my disagreement, and my distinction that I'll draw is that while you are playing the game, the core gameplay, Cappy does not feel like a separate entity to Mario. Like, you use Cappy and it feels like it's one thing acting on the world, and Cappy is just a part of that, whereas Atreus is this separate entity in the game world that is, apart from you, whereas I don't think Cappy really feels apart from you. So
Does Cappy have a personality?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he scrunches his eyes a bit.
Yeah. He comes from a whole race of like ghost hats, basically.
Cat people.
Yeah. Hat people. It's weird. Mario's just fucking weird. Yeah, I don't know. He's certainly got more personality than Yoshi. I'll give him that. Absolutely.
It's not difficult.
No, it's really not.
Yoshi rides, man. Yoshi rides.
It's a pretty blank canvas.
I'm not going to put up with that.
All right, what about like Dogmeat from the Fallout games? Similar kind of thing. Like he's kind of like a partner in terms of a mechanical sense, but being a dog, there's not a lot of dialogue you can kind of have with him.
Yeah, so it's kind of that's a good one. That's a tough one. What do you think, Jam?
I think if it feels like a companion on your journey, then it counts.
Okay.
Which is why I asked
yeah.
about dialogue with Cappy. If Cappy's just there mouthing off instructions and exposition for you and getting thrown to assist, not so much a companion. But if the dialogue is actually, hey, I'm this thing with a personality. And, I mean, Dogmeat has personality. He's happy to see you. He, does things for you. And it's nice not wandering the wasteland alone.
Yeah.
I think he ticks the boxes for me based on what I've said previously. He's not like a party member. You don't have... I mean, you can have different sidekicks in that game, but only one at a time. And he does feel like a separate entity in the world. You can, command him to do certain things, but he's still out there doing, got his own agency. So yeah, I think I would give Dogmeat the sidekick tick.
Okay, interesting. I think about Dogmeat, and to me, he doesn't seem that different to say Roach in the Witcher series. So I mean, functional companion
maybe.
in some ways.
That's a funny distinction there between like, but you've got combat. I was going to say travel and like core sort of action in an action game, but you can fight with Roach as well. So
yeah,
maybe I'd count Roach as a sidekick too. But then he lacks the personality. Oh, it's a tough one. You got me thinking, Natalie.
Roach lacks the personality. Come on, man. He ends up on roofs of his own accord. He's got all the personality. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I think maybe what we can take away from this is that there is definitely no like firm line that we can point to. It's a very much a judgment call, and there's lots of different shades of grey when it comes to how some of these are implemented. So, yeah, it's tough. Like, I mean, even you look at GLaDOS and Wheatley, you mentioned before. Like, when we're talking about Potato GLaDOS, like one of the most interestingly written characters in the entire game. But what does it actually do? It sits in your hand as a narrative device, and you don't actually do anything with it, really. Like, it's kind of like a key in a way.
No, the dialogue. The dialogue is what makes it truly a companion. Even if you're at odds, it's this other being with its own motives, questionable, secretive motives. And you don't know what they are, and they're trying to manipulate you, and you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm not going to talk shit about GLaDOS because it's one of the greatest characters ever made for a video game. But yeah, I don't know. It's cool. I think if I was to pick a favorite out of all of these, though, it'd probably be I'd probably be up there with Atreus or Ellie personally. So I think they're both very, very good. But I don't know. They're all really good. It's tough.
I have huge nostalgia for Daxter and Jak and Daxter. Because of the development over the games. In game 1, Jak literally didn't have a voice of his own. He didn't speak. Daxter was the voice you heard, and he was the one explaining everything that was going on just by talking at Jak constantly. And it was hilarious. His sense of humor was great. He wasn't incredibly useful. And then game 2, suddenly Jak could talk, and they're a bit older, and the world's getting scarier, and the story develops, and their relationship develops, and it's just cool because they he as a sidekick grew with the story. Yeah, and that's just like first thing that pops to my mind when someone says sidekick, for whatever reason.
I'd probably go for Elizabeth as my favorite sidekick.
Yeah,
just because she from Bioshock game, but it's just so memorable playing that game.
Yeah.
I still need to play that.
Great.
I've failed massively. I've not played any Bioshock games yet. Massive failure.
What about least favourite sidekicks?
Really?
Least favourite? Luigi.
Fee from Skyward Sword.
Oh, yeah, it's a good call.
Constantly bugging you.
Mm-hmm.
Dinklebot.
Dinklebot. Yes.
They did manage to
1.
turn that around, though. Like the Ghost in Destiny 2, I think, is much more interesting. So,
I mean, they like acknowledged that Dinklebot was bad, didn't they? They did a Nolan North revoiced it.
Yeah. Look, I don't know if they actually acknowledged that it was bad, or it was more so that they made a bit of a joke of it and realized that Peter Dinklage was getting so friggin' famous for Game of Thrones that the cost to actually get him back in to voice more content was
they replaced the Destiny 1 voice.
The audio.
They took the audio out of the game and replaced it.
I know they did that, but did they do that because...
And he was already famous. He was already famous.
Yeah, okay. All right, fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah. It was backlash.
It was such a weird thing. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't hate it.
Claptrap's another great one. Just remembered Claptrap.
Who's that?
Claptrap from Borderlands.
Yep.
The sense of humour. Freaking hilarious.
Well, he does hold that position with the elite sidekicks that actually eventually become playable characters, because in the Borderlands pre-sequel, he was actually one of the ones that you could have as your main character, so which is kind of cool. Yeah, Claptrap's funny. Claptrap, I'm trying to remember, was Claptrap actually in the Telltale Borderlands? I can't remember. I think he may have appeared at one
I
point.
still have to finish that.
Oh, it's good. I really like that one. Anyway, so yeah, interesting bunch of sidekicks. So, yeah. All right, well, good one for us to close on. We have a bunch of stuff coming up still this month as far as topics go. Next week, we've got a very interesting show lined up, which I'm quite looking forward to. Put our thinking caps on. I think I'm just going to sort of covertly say that I think we maybe all want to do a little bit of research prior to our main topic next week and think about some of the stuff that we want to look back on as a bit of a hint. So,
oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm starting to get real excited about the season that we're getting into, if that's any clue for anybody. So we did mention we were going to do this, so we're going to go ahead and do it, and you can work out what that is and wait till next week. So.
Not
God,
so
you can
subtle.
just say it.
Yeah. Nah.
It's E3 season, people.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, but apart from that, what's everyone else got on? You going to be playing some more God of War? What else is on the horizon?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to finish God of War by next week.
Yep.
Wrap the month.
Yes. Yep.
Commenced.
You have
It is
commenced?
stressful. Everything was going great guns, and then everything fell to shit. So,
How many hours have you put in so far?
I don't know. Good question. You continue, and I'll figure it out.
Nice. Yep. No, I'll probably download that now. I feel like even though I'm still playing the game and even though I'm still excited to keep loading it up every night, now that I have finished God of War, the pressure is off somewhat because I know that I can just let it sit and not have it spoiled for me if I read the wrong thing online or something like that. So it's good.
Yeah, that is a good feeling when you reach that point.
Yeah, it was something I was really worried about getting back from my holiday and having not seen Avengers as well. So it's like, man, I just do not feel settled until I've ticked this one off. So, yeah, which is good.
So you wouldn't have... Oh, yeah. No,
I
don't worry.
have 12 hours, but that's with AFK breaks.
What?
Ah,
I was going to say.
Interesting.
That's some time commitment.
it's actually quite a bit, yeah. Well, I'm going to try and get into Yakuza this week and play a bit of that. But Destiny, I'm going to play some more Warmind and see what I think of that.
Yes.
I haven't made my mind up yet. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I do understand that there's probably going to be some disappointing reuses of content in there at the same time. So yeah.
I like doing the fresh stuff for the first time, and I like that quick climb to the new level cap, and then I'm probably going to lose interest again.
Yeah, which is fine.
That's what I predict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with
Nice
that.
to dip my toes back in, and hopefully it captures my interest for a few weeks.
Yeah, that's it. I must admit, though, when we logged in last night, there was a bunch of stuff that I was just like, I don't remember having all this. I don't remember not opening these engrams.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember all this. Oh, it was funny. So it was a bit of a bonus getting in and was like opening up Christmas presents for a couple of minutes and then realizing that...
Catching up with Shaq.
Yeah. And then none of them are going to mean anything because you've already gone past that level with all the new gear that you're going to be picking up.
I know you guys were giving me shit for being a couple levels lower. I ended up higher. Suck it.
Yes, you did. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, with that in mind, if you want to get hold of us between now and the next episode, you can do so at all the usual places. So mail at partyloaded.com, Facebook at partyloaded, Twitter at partyloadedshow. You can check out our content on YouTube at youtube.com/channelendgame. And of course, you can see us streaming ad hocedly on Twitch at twitch.tv/partyloaded. And we do have the footage up as a VOD for our Destiny Warmind shenanigans last night. So you can check that out. Might try and pull a clip or two out and post that to our socials as well. If you want to catch Christian streaming Hearthstone, what is it, Christian? Twitch.tv/Millpool?
Twitch.tv/Millpool, MILPOOL.
That's the one. So
Usually over the weekends you can catch me there.
go and watch him try and drag himself out of dumpster fire of ladder status.
That's right.
See if you go with that. That's all right. I'll be joining you, man. I haven't put anywhere near enough time into leveling this month. I need to get back to that.
Yeah.
Too many distractions. Anyway, let's all get distracted and we'll have a fun time and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. And until then, bye-bye.
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 The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.